So my name is Jay Tucker. I am the executive director for the Center for Media, Entertainment, and Sports at UCLA's Business School. I recognize that as compelling as this panel is about to be, and it will be compelling, that we are standing between you and drinks. Although I would not object to a few of you in the back being runners and bringing everybody drinks while we do this. It's not a problem. We can, we're innovative, right? We can figure this out. But I think this is a great opportunity to, one, call back to some of the stuff that's been discussed throughout the day, and also just to provide a different perspective. A lot has been said about streaming, connected TV, et cetera, all these different modes in which people are getting their content. This is a group of experts who can tell you more about what's actually happening when people are on the go and what that means for the business. In the interest of time, because we'll try to end on time, I'm going to actually introduce people, each person with a question. Now, you've heard from Linwood before, so I'm going to just jump right in. Could you talk a little bit about the business opportunity you saw when you first started this and what you've learned about how to deliver content to these kinds of audiences?
Hi, everybody. I think some people from last year will remember this, but I came from retail. So what I saw and what I always tracked was how much time do people spend out of the home. And the number was 72% of your time you're not home. And in the pandemic may have changed that number, but it's going back. So when you look at 72% of the time you're not at home, I always wondered why is everything about when you're at home, right? And I looked at a model which was mobile. Mobile doesn't matter where you are, but a lot of times you have it mobile when you're at home, and it doesn't matter where else you go. So our opportunity was, can we serve people on the go, and what do they want to see when they're on the go? Can we bring that to them before they even get there by looking at what their habits are, what they do, and how can we deliver it? So that was the opportunity, and I saw fragmented and not together as one network, and if you could put it together as one network, I felt that would be invaluable to brands, customers, advertisers, and to the partners that actually needed the work.
But okay, so quick follow-up. That's a whole journey. You basically created a nation, right? A nation for content. Combination of technology, business partners, distribution, devices, et cetera. What have you learned through that process about what matters most to the people who are consuming your content?
Well, also, I think the first thing I learned is how to serve our partners. So, first is, are you delivering value and not be transactional? I think that's been over my career, but that was the first thing, was take a step back. It took us almost a year before we launched, after to just get the right tech, the right workflow that worked for both us and for our partners, knowing the environment we were going into. We weren't trying to, just a side note, I went through 10 different tech platforms, 10 different boxes of going out, and I remember laughing as people kept saying, I want to do this, the latest and greatest thing. Well, that doesn't work in this environment. So you have to get your ego out of it and focus on what actually delivers, and you can deliver it in a way that has still a great experience, but can be delivered, and you can work within this environment. And so when I saw other people that are been there for 30 years, and I went to their offices, I knew the box they're working on doesn't work. So we were already 10 boxes ahead. So that's the beauty about being a startup and being young. You can move quick, make decisions, and we failed fast, but we always kept our partners and then the viewer as part of that experience. So we kept that as our anchor.
Love that. Brian, so one of the most compelling forms of content that remains, given all the other stuff that's going on across the ecosystem with the creator economy and short form video and everything, is sports. And you have managed to work in a space where you are delivering premium sports to these other venues. Can you talk a little bit about, one, how sports content specifically generates value in these spaces, and two, if there are any specific requirements in terms of the technology stack to be able to deliver an experience that consumers appreciate?
Yeah, so, at its core, Everpass Media is really about taking what we have all experienced at home, the revolution of streaming and sports, and bringing that to the commercial environment. And as you know, for decades, bars and restaurants have relied on the traditional MVPDs and mostly satellite to get their sports content. But as leagues and broadcasters have bifurcated their rights to streaming providers, you know, you just look at the last two deals that were announced. You had F1 is going to Apple TV, UFC is going to Paramount. Those are becoming problematic for the bars to get in from a technological standpoint and a legal standpoint. So now you had consumers going into bars, and either A, they couldn't find it, or B, they were going in and you had, you know, trying to watch this content on stuff that was built for the bedroom and not for the bar. And you had buffering, and you had all of these issues that became problematic. And when you think about, you know, upwards of 20% of the Nielsen ratings coming from out of home, that then became problematic when you couldn't, you know, stream it into the bars. So we saw an opportunity at EverPass to develop a product that was what we think is developing that same revolution that happened in your house and bringing it into the bars and into bars and restaurants by developing a purpose-built tech stack end-to-end that is built specifically for reliable, easy-to-use product specifically for bars and restaurants.
So you brought up this challenge around measurement. Is there a data point that you check for, look for, share with partners, et cetera, that speaks to the ROI of being able to put this together?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, because we own that last mile and understand what we're streaming into the bar, and then being able to tie that back with, you know, point of sale and other data points that we have, we can more reliably measure the data that is coming in, and we can report that back. Now, we've got all sorts of problems on you know, how people rely on that data, whether they agree with it or not. But at the end of the day, we can be very, very assured of knowing who was watching it at what time, what sport, and when, because we know exactly what is going on that screen, and we know how many people are sitting in that bar. Unlike Nielsen, that is relying on, you know, different measurements, that relying on audio and other things that are a lot less reliable.
Okay, Johnny. So, you know, you are really focused on distribution. Can you talk a little bit more about what you've learned so far around what needs to happen to make all this stuff work?
Yeah, sure. So at Video Elephant, we're distributing content to many different channels, from, you know, online video and web, to streaming, where we own and operate 3 FROST channels. We have another 4 channels that we manage. We have an enormous library of vertical video as well, and we're distributing to different out-of-home endpoints. Like, I think part of the challenge from the content owner perspective is a lot of content owners don't really know what digital out-of-home is, or they see, when we talk about out-of-home, they think of billboards, whereas out-of-home really is a full spectrum of different implementations. I think for a lot of the people up here, what we're talking about is real TVs running real content in environments where people are dwelling, and I think, you know, educating both the advertising side and the content side about this being a very, very real opportunity. That's kind of what we're focusing on.
So if there were 3 things, 3 points that you wanted to impress on the market, what would they be?
Well, I don't even know if it needs to be 3. I think it comes down to, you know, this is very viable inventory. This inventory has value. And, you know, I think what we would all like to see is better classification for what this is, because when we talk about the convergence of CTV and out-of-home, like, we really are talking about that Venn diagram, that section of video inventory that gets a little bit lost because, you know, from the buyer perspective, there's not really a team focused on that. It's either out-of-home or it's CTV, whereas our position is there is really viable inventory that sits in the middle there. And I think that's the the message that we're trying to get out, again, to the buy side, but also to the content owners who maybe don't realize and don't see this as a distribution opportunity, whereas in fact it can be pretty low-hanging fruit for them.
Okay. I don't know if Melva Benoit is still here. She's a mentor of mine and a baller, and it's fun to be here on stage because this is like old home week. But one of the things she talks about when she's teaching her class about media is that, you know, there's the content, there's the audience, and there's monetization, right? And so otherwise you don't really have media. And what you're speaking to, I mean, we're up here as a group because we're talking about the modes of distribution, but really this is a business conference and it's about monetization. So can you just talk a little bit about what the opportunity is if people better understand this market?
Sure. Well, like there is a digital out-of-home component to all media buying, you know, but it's a very, very small percentage of digital media spend. And you know, last year we worked with a research company to publish some findings, and we found that 64% of consumers are more likely to watch ads if it is mixed with entertainment content versus just ads on their own. A lot of digital out-of-home screens right now are just running ads because that's what they can do when they hook into the digital out-of-home SSPs, whereas we think that we can present a much better opportunity for the consumer as well as the advertiser by mixing, you know, premium content, long form, short form, but that's also relative to the setting. So, you know, we'll run different content in a doctor's waiting room than maybe you'll see in a retail environment because the dwell time is different. And I think it's about understanding that and being able to present, you know, different content experiences for consumers as they go throughout their day. Because, you know, that's the world we're kind of moving into, is where everything is really an opportunity to capture attention. And we feel that, you know, out of home is quite potentially the next frontier in that.
So it's funny you bring that up about what's actually happening and which environments we're in, because I wanted to bring Blake into the conversation, and I would love for you to just explain what atmospheric content is. What does it mean when you're talking about kind of ambient video?
So I'm going to dispel the myth of ambient video because premium video in different settings has different definitions. So just to level set a little bit, Atmosphere TV is a company that has made it fun to watch TV outside of the home again. And I'm gonna survey the room here to make my point. How many of you have gone to a bar or restaurant to watch a sporting event? Show of hands. Great. How many of you have gone to watch Judge Judy at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? 0, right? If there was someone that raised their hands, I would gladly have a shot of tequila with you because there's a long conversation ahead. But the reality is, seriously, Alan, it'd be wild. There's 2 kinds of content that work in an out-of-home environment. You go somewhere to watch television. It's live sports, which myself and my peers air on our platforms, or something else, because it's not Judge Judy, it's not CNN on mute, it's not Stephen A. Smith yelling at a cloud on mute. You have to create something that's meant for the eyes and not the ears, and that's what Atmosphere does. And so it's not just an amalgamation of short-form content that's put onto a screen in 60,000 businesses watched by 154 million people a month. It's a premium content experience because you're taking the best of what exists on the internet and you're drawing eyes and sometimes ears and attention to a platform that is watched and loved and brings joy to an environment instead of either creates a divisive environment with news or creates a terrible viewing experience with some other, you know, daytime television or something that doesn't work in that environment. There's nothing wrong with the content I highlighted, by the way. It works great on a different kind of couch, the one that's inside of your home. But when you change that environment, all of a sudden it is not premium. That is a sub-premium experience, and so we bring something a little bit different to the table.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because one of the things that we could focus on in this conversation, this very short conversation, you're still going to get your drinks, in this conversation, could be speeds and feeds. We could spend the whole time talking about content delivery controlling the networks, et cetera, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But the interesting thing that you and Johnny have pointed out is this idea that environment, situation, and context kind of dictate how to best take advantage of an opportunity with certain kinds of content. So what do you know about those situations that tells you this is the stuff that we need to have on our service?
Well, we ask a ton of questions for our audience. We have a large audience, do a ton of qualitative research to make sure that we understand what's going to work. We're also human beings, and we know that when we go grab drinks with our friends, we want to laugh, we want to smile, we want to tap our friends on the shoulder and point at the screen and say, that was an amazing piece of video. Or when we're in the airport, we want to see what's happening with the latest sports news or the latest news around the world. We use our brains in a lot of instances, but we ask a lot of questions, and we try to talk about what we would want to watch. What do you want to watch when you leave your home?
Powerpuff Girls and C-SPAN.
Okay. Tequila shots after?
Yeah, let's go. All right.
Yeah, look, this whole business was founded on the premise that television that was currently airing in 2015 when our founders came up with this company was absolute trash when you come into a different location, when you come into an environment outside of the living room. And we asked ourselves the question, what do you want to watch? And that's how you ended up with cat videos on television in some cases.
Nothing wrong with it. Lego Thriller, I recommend Lego Thriller, right? So Lena, first of all, always great to share a stage with you. Lena has been an executive at Warner Brothers. She's moved on to all kinds of interesting moments in her career where she's really been a technology innovator and early adopter, and she's somebody who stays on top of tons of trends. Now you're with Cinemedia. I was hoping that you would talk a little bit about what you see as this opportunity for, content delivery specifically in places like hotels. So we've been talking about, out of home generally, but can you talk more specifically about what's possible in places like hotels?
Yeah, so, and we're T-minus 7 minutes to drinks, folks. So for, within Cinemedia, they have a new product service, and it was the reason that I took this role, called Senza, and it's a cloud service, cloud delivery service that can take any TV screen and turn it into a smart TV, and everything is done in the cloud. So instead of having to deal with downloads and issues on expensive hardware devices, you just have basically like a decoder device, and it pipes it into any TV screen. That's been done in living room, home spaces, but now working with companies that are in hospitality and out of home and trying to bring new experiences to their customers. And the thing I like to say is that the living room has left the building, and consumers want to have engaging experiences, not always exactly like in a home, but ones that are more engaging and are relevant to them, and not just, as you said back in 2015, the type of content you'd get there. So in this space, we're really powering the next generation of content experiences and taking away all the limitations that are currently there when you're working with different platforms or app stores and things like that you can't always do immediate instant updates. So that's working especially also in hospitality, where there are companies and also brands that want to take control directly of their own ad revenue and in-hotel experiences and control that, basically creating new premium experiences for their hotel guests. And also this works for brands if they want to go now direct to consumer and do different kind of fan engagement experiences with live experiences wherever they want to do pop-up events and things like that as well.
So can we stay on that for a little bit? One of the things that I wanted to ask all of you, this doesn't seem like the kind of environment where you can go it alone. Linwood was talking earlier about, relationships with his clients and partners. In this case, with hospitality, is an interesting dynamic only because when, if we go back even 10 years, they had a lot more control over what media people had access to when they were on premise. And certainly 20 years ago, as far as what the amount of revenue they could capture, it was all of the revenue, right? Now that's not the case, but if you're going to be a service provider in that space, I'm sure there's some kind of dynamic to make sure that everybody wins. Can you talk a little bit about, what's the story? What's the point of value that you try to make sure they get out of a relationship with you?
Yeah, so I think it's about controlling your customer experiences and being able to get the data you need to make informed decisions. And there's several platforms out there that don't always give you all of that access to be able to do that, or you're relying on somebody else. So in this case, what we're working on is giving that control back to the company that wants to run it. We don't care who that company is. It's either the distributor of it or somebody else, a service provider that a company goes to. But we know that data's king, and it's always going to be. And so giving the ability to create now new customer experiences and be able to change things on a dime and serve ads in different ways and create notifications and things like that that are more personalized, or connecting consumers from their hotel app when they check in. They could already have connected to all of their apps, and they basically curate their own experience in a TV, or get to the point of their kids walk into another room, there's your Powerpuff Girl show, right? So that kind of an experience.
Let's go,
And
Bubbles.
Jay does have a daughter, that's why he said Powerpuff Girls.
Oh,
Okay?
please, I love the Powerpuff Girls long before she was born. Come on. Who doesn't love Blossom? So we've got a whole 3 minutes left. We did a great job on introducing everybody, and we have 3 minutes for the actual panel discussion, so it's going to go quick. I want to make sure that I give you all a chance to talk about two things. So this is kind of open for everybody. Item one, I'm very curious, and I don't know if these folks are curious, about the kind of pros and cons related to owning the delivery, right? So, we say content is king. Lena just said that, data is king. But as Linwood would say, distribution is emperor, right? And we're talking about services where end-to-end, these are folks that kind of own the delivery to the end user. So if you can talk about that. The second thing is, because you're on stage and you got all these people out here, what are you looking for in prospective partners, right? So feel free to jump in on either or both.
I'm going to go really quick. I'd want to address one thing, too. When you look about this market, look at it as commercial TV or a streaming product or whatever you want to call it. It's TV. DirecTV, a good friend of mine used to work there, ran their sports part. It was $2.5 billion a year. That's what they were driving in revenue, ad revenue on that. That's the total digital out-of-home video part is $3 billion. This is not something that we even play in. So we get zero money from there. And I go back to why I brought that up is this entire environment is about owning the entire thing is expensive. It's hard. But at the end of the day, when you get to the data point, it's the most valuable part of that whole entire ecosystem because you know every single thing that's going on. We know where we're delivering, who's there when we're delivering it, and the data points of what's being sold in it. So now we become very valuable because people are seeing that value. And I think the one thing I'd say to you is that scale is through collaboration and through partnerships. I think the ego says go it alone. The smart people go together with everybody. So everybody in this stage I partner with, I have zero ego, and I think that's the key on really scaling out and being successful in this part of the business.
For us, owning the whole distribution end to end is about being able to have different ways to monetize the business. If you think about, again, for us, sports rights and the costs of them are on a hockey stick, and that's not ending. And those costs get passed down to the bars and restaurants. And when you think about the other costs that they have in the commodity and labor and all the other stuff, that decision point then quickly becomes, well, do I need that? So if I have other ways to monetize it by owning that whole way, I can start passing on additional costs to then make that more palatable for them and share in those revenue streams. So that's why owning from end to end and having that full delivery is important for us.
Yeah, I think we're a little bit different in that we don't own the hardware, but I think to Linwood's point, and we would really lean into that, is we see ourselves as a cog in that kind of partnership ecosystem. And we work very, very closely with the screen operators to be able to enable them to be able to run premium content and to bring in monetization. So in terms of what we look for prospective partners, we're always looking to work with screen operators, big or small, content owners. We work with over 1,000 content owners currently, but we're always looking to grow that library and to continue to feed the distribution into out-of-home.
Anthony Wood can't tell me what to do. Comcast can't tell me what to do. I can do whatever I want. It's the best part of owning your platform end to end. That's it. We get the data, we get everything we want, but nobody can tell me not a thing that they want me to do. And as someone who operated a cable network and fought with cable MVPDs, someone who built a very early on connected TV news app and dealt with that part of the ecosystem, there is a ton of freedom in being able to do whatever you want. If I want to show a picture of my foot on 60,000 TV screens, I do that. I mean, I might lose some customers, but
Not with your feet, you
terrible
wouldn't.
shots of tequila for me, apparently. But I think more than anything, as we go to market and we look at who we want to work with, we're looking for people who want to find value in diving deep into our ecosystem, into diving deep into the tools that we do sell on top of the advertising that drives a decent chunk of our business, and that are going to be long-term users and customers of ours that see true value in bringing real entertainment to their businesses. So, and hopefully I won't show a picture of my foot.
It's all good if you do.
Or Power Park girls.
I'm going to say that needs to be an OnlyFans thing, right? Make some money, right? We're talking about monetization. Right?
Fifth revenue line.
Right. Look, I'll just say, because everyone's already talked about this in a great way, that I think it's about thinking forward of what do you want to do as a brand, as a company, to get past all the challenges and unknowns that we have with AI and cloud systems and content discovery and all of these new experiences that are coming out. How can you move quickly? And thinking about that, we know eyeballs are important and eyeballs are going everywhere. So don't just thinking about what happens in the home, but to really look at how are you going to reimagine your content or your brand in all of these spaces and actually figure out how you can take time to play around in this space and figure out what's going to work and partner with these fabulous people.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yes, you may say one more thing.
The thing that's changed for all of us, and I think it's a testament to the work and the time, is we're now audience first. Nobody gives like my son doesn't say, I'm watching football. We played golf. We had the football on an iPad, and then we went back to his house. We were streaming it on YouTube. We went to a bar in Hoboken, and then we went back to my house to watch a game. He didn't say, I watched it on mobile, and he just said I was watching football. And we have that audience now. That's what the beauty of owning this is. We can be audience first, and then 365, we can talk to people. So I think that's a big change that's happened because we own it end to end.
I love that. So I'm going to have to leave it there because we are overdue for drinks. But since there are drinks, please talk to these folks as soon as we're done. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you guys for being here today. Appreciate it.